I am the CEO's biological father. For the sake of a pretentious coquette, the CEO abandoned his arranged marriage partner at the wedding, shoved his middle school dropout brother-in-law into the company as vice president, allowed the company to go bankrupt without managing it, spending all his time chasing after his wife. Because of this, the Wang family went bankrupt. As the former head of a trillion-yuan business empire, in my old age I couldn't even afford the fees for a nursing home, because I couldn't hold back my poop and urine. I was slapped wildly by the caregiver and ended up being angered to death alive. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn to the very moment when he was about to abandon his fiancée and elope with that pretentious coquette. Silently, I pulled out my phone and called my eldest nephew who had just returned to the country. Do you want a wife? Do you want a company? As long as you say the word, I'll deliver both to you today. Chapter 1. The CEO, dragging along the pretentious coquette, arrogantly declared, "She's the only woman for me. Even if you take the title of Mrs. Wang, you'll never." I rushed onto the stage in a single stride and landed a loud slap across his face. You unfilial son. Did he have any idea how his behavior today would impact the company's stock market? When it comes to harming money, I cannot allow it. Even the CEO's chiseled face couldn't withstand my fists as big as sandbags. Under my pressure, the wedding proceeded smoothly. The pretentious coquette was dragged backstage, with no chance of appearing again during the whole banquet. But when I let my guard down for a moment, he went to trample on his new wife. My heart belongs only to Sophia. After the marriage, you must obediently stay home, take care of my parents, and never bully her. If you ever make her shed a single tear, I will destroy your entire Liu family. Should he even guess why this marriage alliance with the Liu family exists? Of course, it's because both families are evenly matched, working in overlapping industries, able to help each other, using the marriage as an opportunity to bind the two families together, avoiding future conflict. I appeared instantly before my daughter-in-law and swung another round slap at his face. He covered his swollen cheek. Dad, what on earth are you doing? I should be asking you. Willow Liu is getting married, and yet that woman is singing and dancing here. Do you think this is appropriate? And pretentious coquette my ass. What decent and virtuous girl sneaks into someone else's wedding without an invitation, just to steal the groom? My questions grew louder and louder. Hiding behind the CEO, the pretentious coquette finally stepped out. Uncle Wang, everything is my fault. Please don't blame President Wang. I only wanted to see him one last time and say goodbye. I even bought the plane tickets to go abroad. Yes, and they were round-trip tickets for two. The two of them had planned to fly overseas for their honeymoon, blocking all contacts, leaving me, an old retired man, to clean up their mess, and leaving the poor daughter-in-law, who hadn't even received the marriage certificate yet, abandoned at the wedding. Since I had been reborn, how could I not know what schemes they were plotting? I held onto my daughter-in-law and spoke sincerely. I only recognize you as my daughter-in-law. The bond between our families will not be broken because of this rebellious son. No more stories of love turning into hate. No more long-term cooperation destroyed by a single woman. This life, I will never allow it to happen again. Yet Willow truly loved the CEO. I still want to bully her. Who told her to steal my husband? Before the words even fell, the pretentious coquette also received 2 slaps from Willow. Now she looked perfectly symmetrical with the CEO. Fine, fine, fine. The CEO laughed angrily. You asked for this, secretary. From today onward, cut off all financial support to the Liu family. Let's see how long she can keep her pride. So everything I did, everything I said, was all in vain. This group of foolish clowns. Chapter 2. The result of cutting off funds was that the company received a lawyer's letter, facing astronomical penalty fees. In my previous life, he only started all kinds of reckless operations after he had eloped with the pretentious coquette. But now that I stopped his elopement, he began wrecking the company even earlier. Better to have given birth to a pig than to him. Ashamed to face the Liu family. Yet I could not allow our family's relationship to deteriorate. I had the pretentious coquette removed from their bridal home, changed the locks, and handed the only key to my daughter-in-law. Young people's matters are beyond the understanding of an old man like me. But in a marriage, quarrels by the bedside end with reconciliation under the quilt. There's nothing that cannot be overcome. Let him stay here with you. Once you've talked things through, we'll discuss the rest. In my previous life, I was so miserable that I ended up in a nursing home, bullied by caregivers because I couldn't pay the fees. Even when I soiled myself, I was beaten, reborn. I have come to terms with it all. A real man's got a big butt. If you caused the mess, you go clean it up. It's better for my son to please his wife than for me to swallow my pride and beg our in-laws. Perhaps in the world of CEO romance stories, love surpasses everything. All my heartfelt words before did not attract my daughter-in-law as much as this one key. She held the only key with reverent gratitude. Rest assured, I'll take care of things with my family. I left their new home in high spirits, but before I could even sit down at home, news arrived. The pretentious coquette who had just been taken away was making a scene, threatening suicide. She even claimed she already carried the CEO's child. If I insisted on separating them, she would die together with my grandchild. In my previous life, after they eloped, they really did return a year later with fraternal twins. But I thought she got pregnant abroad. Who would have thought she already had it in her belly now? And yet she had the face to tell me. She crashed the wedding only to see him one last time. I was so furious I swallowed a quick-acting heart pill. I ordered the secretary to take her for a checkup. For weeks pregnant, an ultrasound revealed 2 fetal heartbeats. They were indeed the fraternal twins from my previous life. But over at the bridal home, my vision darkened again. Relying on another heart pill, I staggered over there. The scene of loving tenderness I had expected was nowhere to be seen. Everything in the room that could be smashed was smashed into pieces. The CEO's face was dark, while my daughter-in-law sat opposite him, silently crying. In shock, I asked what had happened. My daughter-in-law hesitated, words caught in her throat. The CEO, however, wore a look of pride. I'm allergic to any woman other than Sophia. Are you impotent or premature? I wore a troubled expression, carrying the last shred of concern for my own son. Don't conceal your illness. The sooner you get treatment, the sooner you'll recover. Who in their right mind would proudly declare such a thing? Clearly, he was only trying to cover up his own shortcomings. I began to worry whether the twins from my previous life were truly of Wang bloodline. The CEO's face turned gloomy, but he didn't dare lash out at me. He could only dryly insist that his body had no problem. I didn't believe him, and ordered the secretary to take him to the hospital for a full checkup, and while at it, secretly conduct a paternity test. Chapter 3. Whether the children belong to the CEO or not could be set aside for now. Given the current situation, if things continued this way, it would absolutely turn into enmity, not a marriage alliance. I looked at my daughter-in-law, weeping in grievance. Memories of the tragic outcome from my past life surfaced. In the end, I made a ridiculous yet wise decision. My dear daughter-in-law, I still have several nephews who are outstanding men, paragons of virtue. Why don't you see if any of them suit you? She stopped crying. Her tearful eyes widened in shock as she looked at me. So she still couldn't quite accept such a suggestion. I only wanted to avoid repeating the mistakes of my past life, but perhaps I was being too hasty. Just as I was about to give up, she shyly said, I remember his cousin studied abroad in Germany and just recently finished his program. This time, it was my turn to fall silent. But then I thought of how the CEO had ruined the family business in my previous life, and of the miserable fate I suffered in old age. So I steeled myself. It can be arranged. While I was busily working to find my daughter-in-law a new husband, the pretentious coquette was at the hospital making a scene, declaring she would never have an abortion, and coincidentally ran into the CEO. When the secretary reported this to me, I silently took another heart pill. Who told you to make her have an abortion? I only asked you to confirm whether she was lying. The secretary, suffering in silence, could only mutter bitterly. We explained, but the CEO and that lady didn't believe us. Indeed, they never understood human language. I knew this all too well, so I no longer blamed the secretary. I simply told him to bring them both back. My daughter-in-law had already gone off for a spa treatment, preparing for the upcoming blind date. Now I was left alone. When the CEO returned, he actually sighed in relief, grasped the pretentious coquette's hand, and solemnly declared, Dad, she is carrying my flesh and blood. Please accept her as your daughter-in-law. Willow has already left gracefully, so why make things difficult for her? Once the child is born, you can enjoy your twilight years with grandchildren at your side. Isn't that good? With trembling hands, I pulled out a pen and a check, writing 10 billion on it before signing and pushing it toward them. The pretentious coquette's eyes immediately reddened as she said, with stubborn resolve, no matter how much money you give me, I will never leave him. Please don't try to humiliate me with money. Chapter 4. Take a closer look first. I had signed my name in the payee field. This money, I was asking them for it. Who said I was giving money to them? Since you're dead set on being with this woman, then resign from the company and pay back every cent I've invested in you over the years. After that, however you want to fall in love or play house, it has nothing to do with me. The CEO was in utter disbelief. Dad, when did you become so obsessed with money? Since when has money mattered so much to you? I'm your son, your own flesh and blood. How could you hold this against me? Yes, you are my son. That's why, after being reborn, I even wanted to rescue you instead of simply stabbing you to death. But in just one day, you've made me take 3 heart pills out of rage. I've had enough. I can't possibly throw away my own life for an unfilial child. Having been reborn, I refuse to end up as miserably as in my previous life, with a love-struck fool like him continuing to helm the Wang family empire. The Wang family is doomed sooner or later. Better to replace him with someone else while I still can. He didn't sign. Instead, he tore the check to pieces. So this is your way of forcing me to be ambitious. Isn't this a bit too cliché? My whole life I followed the path you laid out for me. I've always been the most outstanding among my peers, but you never cared whether I was exhausted or not. Only Sophia understands me. Only she truly gets me. He slammed the table, stood up, and shouted at me. In this lifetime, I will marry no one but her. Even if you threaten me with the company, I will never give in. And he really did go and resign from his position. But company positions can't be resolved with just a few words. I had already stepped down, and he had been running the company for years. Just like how cutting off cooperation funds as a joke only turned the company into a laughingstock. If he didn't resign of his own accord, I had no authority to remove him. Perhaps it's true that the favored always act with reckless impunity. In my past life, I did indeed indulge him too much, but in this life, I care more about securing my own retirement. I turned to my eldest nephew who had just returned to the country. Do you want a wife? Do you want a company? As long as you say the word, I'll hand both to you today. My nephew didn't respond, probably thinking I'd lost my mind. As long as you're willing to marry Willow, continue the marriage alliance, I'll help you become the head of the Wong family. Uncle, you must be joking. With my cousin around, why would you try to pull me in? The company doesn't belong to me, nor to our family alone. A trillion-yuan business empire means countless subsidiaries under the group, multiple industries where we lead the market, and millions of employees' livelihoods. It's not just some backdrop that can be discarded because they want to play out their little romance. He may not be my son by blood, but at least a normal man wouldn't deliberately destroy the company. And with the shares in my hand, as long as he runs the company properly, just the dividends alone would be enough for me to live out my old age in peace. Chapter 5. Of course he agreed. Anyone with a brain wouldn't pass up such a golden opportunity. Except for Char Siu, his brain had already been parasitized by a terrifying virus called love, while my eldest nephew gradually took over the company and, at the same time, courted Willow. He moved into the pretentious coquette's shabby 40-square-meter rental, saying he wanted to rebuild from scratch without relying on his family. By the time Willow had shifted her affections and gone to register for marriage with my nephew, the pretentious coquette was already showing her pregnancy. At the earlier prenatal checkup, it was less than 8 weeks, so DNA verification couldn't be done, so I wasn't certain if the twins were actually his. But the CEO firmly believed they were his children, and his love for Sophia was so hopelessly deep that even while living on scraps, he never considered bowing his head to me. At most, he occasionally sent harassing texts asking if I regretted driving away such an outstanding son. I blocked him without a word, and after that, I didn't hear from him for a long time. Just like in my previous life when he fled the marriage and disappeared for a year. But now, I no longer worried about his safety, nor fretted about the company's falling market value. My eldest nephew was a rising star, steadily taking over the company under my guidance. He let the marriage be arranged, and his feelings for Willow gradually deepened. He was clearly someone worth grooming. Just when I thought the farce from my previous life had finally come to an end, the pretentious coquette suffered massive hemorrhage during childbirth, and she turned out to have the rare panda blood type, with the blood bank lacking sufficient reserves. Coincidentally, Willow had the same blood type. The CEO directly ordered people to drag her over. When I arrived at the scene, I heard him roaring at the doctors, "Draw her blood. Even if you drain every last drop, you must save Sophia for me. If she dies, I'll bury all of you with her." What era are we living in? This is a society ruled by law. If word of this got out, it wouldn't matter that he had already left the company. As long as his surname was Wong, he would drag down the reputation of our entire family. It could even result in many people being summoned for questioning. That familiar stabbing pain of a heart attack hit me. I strode forward, swinging a full-force slap that sent him crashing into the wall. Then I shielded my niece-in-law behind me. "You bastard. I dare anyone to try." The CEO held his swollen face. "Dad, why are you protecting her? Don't you realize the one on the operating table is my wife and your own grandchild?" I had bodyguards drag the CEO away. Causing a scene in a hospital was nothing but a disgrace to me. My apologies, everyone. Please just follow all the medical protocols. As for my son, I tapped my temple and sighed. His head isn't quite right. When his wife ran into trouble during labor, he panicked so badly he started spouting nonsense. Chapter 6. Even without my niece-in-law donating blood, the twins were still delivered safely. The CEO didn't think he had done anything wrong. Holding the babies, he proudly showed them off to me. "Sophia gave me a son and a daughter. She's a great contributor to the Wong family, and I want to reward her with 10 million. I said nothing. Then he tried to shove the babies into my arms. "But my accounts are all frozen now. So Dad, I pushed the children back to him and said, "Go chase after your so-called love, but don't even think about counting on me. And don't harm Willow. She's already married. Her relationship with her husband is strong. Don't drag her into your mess again." The CEO's expression froze. He hadn't expected me to be this ruthless. After all, in my previous life, when he returned with Sophia and the twins, I had handed the well-managed company back to him again, other than advising him not to disappear suddenly anymore, and reminding him that as a married man he needed to take responsibility. I never spoke harshly to him. Now, he was probably still waiting for me to beg him to return to run the company and inherit the family fortune. I told him bluntly, "From now on, the Wong family's money has nothing to do with you. During the time you've been gone, Both the company and the household have been managed entirely by your cousin, including the marriage. The CEO hadn't expected me not to wait for him this time. After a long silence, he sneered. Dad, that joke isn't funny. What? Do you have some illegitimate son out there? Could anyone possibly be more outstanding than me? I was speechless. Even if I tied a dog to that position, it would do a better job than him. I knew his brain was diseased now. Reasoning with him was useless. So I gave direct orders to the secretary. Hire 10 tutors for him, to take turns teaching him basic law until he learns to follow rules and obey the law. Don't let him go out and embarrass himself again. And those 2 children, hire 4 nannies to care for them, and have that pretentious coquette go learn alongside them. In my previous life, their so-called love story was nothing but chaos. One child ended up autistic, the other precociously cunning like a little monster. All that talk of genius children, weren't they just forced out by bad parenting? Maybe the children still had hope, if separated from these unreliable parents. No one protested my arrangement to take the children away. The CEO once again revealed that all too familiar sinister smile, confidently whispering to the pretentious coquette, I knew it. Dad talks tough but has a soft heart. He can't resist our children. When you go visit them, just call him father-in-law more often. Do you think he'll really keep rejecting you? Even now, they still refuse to believe that I would abandon them. Chapter 7. When my eldest nephew learned that Willow had nearly been forced to donate blood, he hunted down the CEO and beat him within an inch of his life. In theory, the two were evenly matched in skill, but my nephew had brought along an entire team of bodyguards. Once the CEO was battered until barely breathing, my nephew tore off his gloves, threw them on him, and threatened, I don't care about your messy business, but if you ever set your sights on my wife again, a beating won't be enough to settle it. My wife? The CEO finally realized things were beyond his control. I disappear for just 1 year, and she marries you. She's that desperate. Before he could finish the insult, a kick cut him off. The CEO was sent straight into the hospital. His tutors told me about the incident. I told them to keep teaching. Being hospitalized doesn't mean the brain is broken. His lessons could continue just fine. I brought some tonics to visit him, and the pretentious coquette was there caring for him. The two of them looked far less glamorous than they had in my previous life. Dad, did you really hand the company over to my cousin? Our family isn't lacking in people. Why give it to an outsider? I looked at this son who, both in my past life and this one, had abandoned his bride and left me to deal with the mess. And I wondered how thick his face must be to even say such words. Your cousin is my nephew, all Wong family blood. Who's an outsider? Who's an insider? Since you don't want to take the company, I won't force you. Just like you told me before, I truly did pressure you too much. So now, go pursue your freedom and love. He smashed all the tonics I'd brought onto the ground. Just because I didn't follow your arrangements and marry Willow, you'd treat me like this. Why do you always want to control my life? Why do you keep forcing me, threatening me? If his flaws were minor, I might have suspected my parenting was at fault, but for him to be this twisted, I could only assume he was mentally ill. I left the ward and asked the hospital about their payments. I learned they were using facial recognition to check in, but hadn't actually paid a cent. I immediately told the hospital that he was no longer part of the Wong family. That night, unable to afford the bills, they left the hospital on their own. As soon as his face healed, he went straight to the company. There, he ran into my nephew, surrounded by people, basking in the treatment he once enjoyed. He stopped them and confronted my nephew directly. Since when did the Wong Group become your private property? My nephew didn't argue. He only asked security whether the men had a pass. How could you let just anyone in? Throw him out. And in front of many of his former subordinates, the CEO was thrown out. He roared in disbelief, demanding that my nephew return everything that belonged to him. But my nephew simply let the others continue their work. Then he stepped up, ground his foot hard into the CEO's hand, and said with disdain, I really envy you. You had a father who carefully planned everything for you. All you had to do was follow his arrangements to achieve success and glory. But not only did you not want it, you despised it all. Who's to blame for that? Just then, newly married Willow came to deliver lunch, and happened to witness the scene. She quietly stood beside my nephew, took his hand, and silently showed her support. The CEO still refused to believe it. He scrambled up from the ground, seized Willow's wrist, and demanded to know if this was all some kind of play, that they had conspired to deceive him. She couldn't break free and looked to my nephew in distress. And then, the CEO got beaten again. Right in front of him, his cousin's wife kissed my nephew. In the past, I must have been blind to ever fall for you. Why would I ignore a handsome, capable husband, and instead cling to a rotten cucumber like you? They humiliated the CEO from head to toe, then left together in the executive elevator. Chapter 8. The CEO's belated rebellious phase suddenly ended. Several times he came back, trying to show me his filial piety. Even though he had been kicked out, he never complained, growing braver with each setback, his attitude 1,000 times better than before. In his career as well, He finally lowered himself and was willing to actively attend job interviews. After all, he was an Ivy League graduate, and before falling in love, he had managed the company with ease, without making any major mistakes, even without my approval. He successfully interviewed for an executive position in a subsidiary. After making some achievements there, he returned to the main company to report. The secretary whispered in my ear, pleading on his behalf. He's still your biological son. Perhaps he was possessed by something when he did those things before. Since he's changed now, why not give him another chance? I didn't agree, but neither did I chase him away. After all, climbing back up to an executive position, he had relied on his own efforts. As long as he corrected his mistakes, I wouldn't destroy him completely. Yet remembering my previous life, I still couldn't feel at ease. So I transferred several reliable secretaries to the subsidiary to keep an eye on the CEO. It didn't take long before he abused his power, bringing in his junior brother-in-law, fresh out of prison, with nothing more than a middle school education. But his current position wasn't high. Unlike in my previous life where he could easily make him vice president, now the brother-in-law could only be slotted in as an ordinary staffer. Yet just like before, he used his relationship with the CEO to harass female colleagues and pocket company property. The only difference was that instead of misappropriating millions, now he was profiting a few cents per page by abusing the printer. As for the women, without the title of vice president to shield him, no one humored him when harassed. They cursed him out, and if it got serious, they hit him. In the subsidiary, this man was like a toad, disgusting, but not enough to constitute a crime. I had his actions documented and sent to the CEO. 3 times this happened, and still he did nothing. So I went to him with the files myself. So this is why I've been getting these reports lately. It was your arrangement. Yes, my arrangement. So what do you think after reading them? He felt no shame. Instead, he was proud. He's my brother-in-law. It's normal for him to enjoy some privileges in the company. Besides, he's a sensible person and hasn't done anything wrong. I remembered in my past life, when his brother-in-law caused trouble, he had worn the same expression. But back then, it had nearly cost lives and caused the company tens of millions in losses. He didn't notice my rising fury and continued. Besides, Sophia has been throwing tantrums lately. I need to keep her brother close by so she won't secretly run away. And then, why should the company foot the bill for your romance? My last shred of hope for him was completely extinguished. I left his office and immediately ordered termination contracts to be drawn up. Not just for his brother-in-law, he could pack up and leave too. I finally understood, his biggest flaw wasn't even being love-brained, but his utter disregard for rules and law. Living in the 21st century, yet still carrying the mindset of a feudal lord. In his eyes, the whole world revolved around him. Anyone and anything he didn't care about should unquestioningly serve him like slaves. Such a son, I could no longer afford to keep. Chapter 9. After having him dismissed, I contacted my eldest nephew and asked him to organize a press conference. There, I publicly severed ties with him. The CEO was the last person to know. When the termination letter was handed to him, he tore it up and threw it in the trash. The next day, he went to work as usual, only to find he was no longer an employee and couldn't even get into the building. Blocked outside the company with him was his brother-in-law. Brother-in-law, what's going on? Didn't you tell my sister you'd arrange a good future for me? That disdainful look from his brother-in-law pierced him deeply. Before he could come up with an excuse, a group of reporters, fresh from the press conference, surrounded him. Why has Chairman Wang disowned you? How do you feel about being expelled from the family? Is there an inside story you can share with us? Faced with the flashing cameras, his face turned dark. He grabbed a reporter who shoved a lens in his face and demanded to know what this meant. The reporter showed him the draft news article, along with the full video of the event. In the video, I solemnly announced that I was handing the family business over to my nephew and severing all ties with him. The lawyer was present, and the transfer of assets had already been notarized. Meanwhile, my nephew's wife stood happily at his side, all smiles. Everything emphasized one fact: he had truly been abandoned. He refused to believe it and tried to storm in to confront me. Stopped by the bodyguards, he was only dragged back under my permission. Dad, you're really giving the family business to my cousin. What right does he have? I'm your son. I'm not giving it to him. Competence decides who holds it. Seeing him like this, I couldn't help but laugh. Well, I've already taken care of all the things you hated. Now you can live the happy life you wanted. He couldn't bring himself to say he regretted anything in front of me, but he couldn't hide the regret in his eyes, nor the blood dripping from his clenched fists. Still, he didn't utter the word regret. Only later, when his brother-in-law came asking for more benefits, did he beat him up. Then the brother-in-law ran crying to Sophia, and the two of them tore into each other in a massive fight. I heard that without the CEO's support, that idle, worthless brother-in-law returned to his shady ways, was arrested, and sent back to prison. Truly worth celebrating. Chapter 10. After the brother-in-law went back to prison, the couple's relationship sank to rock bottom. The pretentious coquette constantly tried to run away, saying his love was suffocating her. The CEO, red-eyed and clutching his waist, swore that he could give her anything but freedom. Then the pretentious coquette demanded her brother be returned to her side, and the CEO actually tried to make it happen. As a result, he was detained for 15 days for picking quarrels and provoking trouble. 10 tutors had taken turns trying to drill legal knowledge into his head, but none succeeded. My nephew asked me if we should bail him out. I refused without hesitation. We've already severed ties, let's cut it clean. So he has no illusions left. My nephew let out a rich, old money laugh, praising me endlessly. Uncle, you are truly decisive and resolute. Lately, many have whispered in my ear that since you could be so ruthless with your own son, you must only be using me, that I should be on guard, and perhaps even get rid of you to prevent future trouble. I laughed as well. If I could keep such close watch over the CEO, how could I possibly let my nephew slip by unnoticed? The fact that he confessed this to me meant he hadn't been swayed. He was sane, resourceful, and capable of managing the family empire, a good candidate indeed. Uncle, without your foresight, the Wang Group wouldn't have the glory it has today. Destroying the foundation for short-term gain, or throwing away potential out of fear, has never been my style. If there's anything I can do, please command me freely. He extended his hand. Shall we wish for a pleasant cooperation? I grasped his hand and calmly acknowledged his suspicion. The future is ever-changing. Let's hope we can find the right path together. Chapter 11. The brilliance of my career could not erase the stain of having such a troublesome son. Their only connection to me now was the 2 children being raised by my side. At just over a year old, the twins were beginning to talk, an age when emotions are most keenly felt. Sophia had 4 visits a month to see them. Each time, a nanny was always present. At first, her behavior seemed normal, but today, when she arrived, she clutched her son and wailed, "Mommy has no one to rely on but you. Baby, you must grow strong quickly, so you can protect mommy." Through her sobs, she spoke of the CEO's cruelty and neglect, of her own hardships. I rushed over, but before I could say anything, the child burst into hysterical wailing. The startled nanny, who had been dozing off, immediately snatched the child from her arms. On his chubby little arms, several bright red pinch marks stood out. The nanny hurried to soothe him. I ordered the bodyguards to restrain the pretentious coquette and drag her away. From the bottom of my heart, I asked her, "You have hands and feet. Can't you work for yourself? You expect a 1-year-old child to raise you. What on earth is in your head?" She cowered, yet spoke with self-righteousness. "They're both genius babies. Only if I talk like this will they understand my suffering." Yes, they were geniuses, indeed. The elder brother, a hacker prodigy, breaking into company secrets at the age of 3, only to be taken away to have his worldview corrected. He died never knowing whose hands had shaped him. The younger sister, a dancing prodigy, but lost in her own world. At her very first public performance, she committed suicide on stage, leaving a final tragedy. I had once suspected the Wang family carried some genetic curse, but never suspected it was her planting such twisted thoughts in them from the start. That familiar stab of a heart attack surged through me. I ordered her sent to the hospital. Soon, the pretentious coquette was diagnosed with mental illness. I arranged for the best psychiatric hospital and forbade her from seeing the children again until she was cured. When the CEO was released and discovered the pretentious coquette had disappeared, he stormed over to me. "Where have you hidden Sophia? I warn you, return her to me, or be prepared to face my wrath." What wrath? The gravest harm he could inflict on me now would be to strip naked in public, defecating while shouting that he was my son. Other than that, I couldn't think of a single way he could threaten me. How did he even have the face to utter such words? I had no interest in watching him prance around in front of me any longer. I simply said, "I'll send you to see her." Unsurprisingly, the CEO also turned out to be mentally ill. I arranged for him to live next door to the pretentious coquette in the hospital, where the staff happily humored their delusions. For them, going there was like coming home, perhaps even happier than being at home. Maybe this was what it meant to put the right people in the right environment. Relieved, I devoted myself to raising the 2 children. I tried my best to give them a happy, carefree childhood suited to their age. They remained bright and gifted, but not nearly as extreme as in my previous life. At 3 years old, the brother was just learning to play matching games on the computer. The sister, dressed in a tutu, pouted and asked me to take pretty photos of her. Living off the monthly company dividends, I finally enjoyed a good life I had never known in my previous lifetime. Chapter 12. When the elder grandson turned 20, he too entered the company as an intern. By then, my eldest nephew and Willow also had children of their own. Yet they both agreed the company's successor should be chosen from the most capable, giving all cousins a fair competition. I knew what they meant. The situation with the CEO must never be allowed to repeat. But out of respect for my pride, they didn't say it outright. This remained a thorn in my heart. I never wronged the CEO in any way, and before meeting Sophia, he truly was the most outstanding among his peers. It was only after cutting a bloody path through his generation that he won the right to lead the Wang family. So why did he suddenly become so foolish? When the elder grandson had already become a department manager, He went to attend his younger sister's first musical performance. Backstage, he encountered a girl who, due to an accident, twisted her ankle and lost her chance to perform. He thoughtfully took her to the hospital, and in doing so, missed his sister's debut. As my heart sank, I feared another cliché story of old flames reigniting, repeating his parents' tragedy. But then he suddenly asked me, "Grandpa, what does it mean, this CEO system? What is that thing?" It approached me, saying that girl was my destined goddess, and insisted I had to take her to the hospital. I didn't quite understand the system, but I thought of the CEO's absurd life. So many years later, I dragged my son out of the psychiatric hospital and forced father and son to confront each other, asking whether he too had encountered this thing. He said he was the son of destiny. Having a system was perfectly normal. If I hadn't interfered, he would already have turned the Wang family into the greatest empire with the system's help, so how could it have ended up stuck where it was today? I looked at the Wang family, which had grown from $1 trillion to $10 trillion in assets, and thought, wasn't that good enough? And yet this man, who in his past life had bankrupted the Wang family, where did he find the confidence to spew such nonsense? Just because of some dubious system? I trembled all over, terrified that my grandson would become the next CEO, the next ungrateful wolf. I lifted my hand and stared at my palm. Even if I could break apart their absurd game with a single slap, how many years did I have left to live? Why wouldn't this thing let go of my family? When I warned my grandson that the system harbored ulterior motives and was not to be trusted, he smiled and said, "Knowing you're not working with the system puts my heart at ease." I reported it to the state, and they've already extracted it from my mind. Right now, it's undergoing research. Hopefully we'll uncover its secrets and make proper use of it. Thanks to this project, I've already secured a government career. For a moment, I saw the image from my previous life. At my own grave, my grandson had become pale and gaunt, like a ghostly shadow. It seemed he hadn't spoken to anyone in a long time. Even speaking was difficult. The system captured Grandpa, sister, they're both dead. Even after his parents went bankrupt, he and Sophia only cared about their endless chase of love. Indifferent to the world, he had seized the system behind it all, but everything was already beyond repair. After mourning his family, he followed them into death. I rushed forward, embracing my grandson, weeping bitterly. I cursed the system while soothing him, insisting everything was already over. But I didn't forget one last thing. I told him to solemnly apologize to his sister, to explain, so their sibling bond wouldn't be broken by this matter. His sister said that although he had left in a hurry that day, he had transferred her $10 million. She had forgiven him then and there. Good. That was what a true CEO ought to do. Once the system was gone, the CEO finally awoke from his false dream and realized how thoroughly his life had been ruined. He wanted to make a comeback, to re-enter the company and prove himself. But after all these years, I slapped him once again and told him to get lost, to redeem himself first, to apologize to all those he had hurt with his actions, and not to show his face until he had earned their forgiveness. The one he had wronged most deeply was Willow, who in this life had remarried his cousin. The CEO got stuck there, and that impasse lasted his entire life.